mobilized this virulent nationalist group out of Lvov in Western Ukraine, among whom were these neo-Nazis who worshiped Stepan Bandera and the Banderista movement, which was a pro-Nazi Ukrainian national movement, carried out a resistance in that area for decades. These guys came in and took over Maidan, violently overthrew the legitimate president of Ukraine, and then imposed themselves through force of violence into the Ukrainian body politic. To give you an example of how powerful they are, when Poroshenko, who was the president before Zelensky, negotiated the Minsk Accords in 2014, 2015, he agreed that all they had to do is give a special autonomous situation to their status to the Donetsk and Lugansk, and they would stay part of Ukraine. He agreed with Germany and France. Then he came back, and the neo-Nazis said, "You try and implement that, we'll kill you." Americans get upset with a bunch of rioters taking the capital and then leaving the same day. I get upset about it. I'm not happy about it. But it ain't an insurrection. An insurrection is what happened in Ukraine. What's happening every day. Zelensky was told he was elected to be the president who brought peace. If you remember, Zelensky toured the front line because they were supposed to disarm. And he went up to the Azov battalion and he said, "Disarm." And they laughed at him, kicked him out. He said, "I'm the president of Ukraine." They said, "Shut up, we'll slap you." He had to leave. And he was told, if you sign Minsk, we will hang you by the neck until dead. That's the control these people have. And they've done it in the military. These people should have been disbanded, arrested, shot. Instead, the military absorbed them and then promoted their officers throughout the ranks so that there's neo-Nazis everywhere. And the biggest embarrassment of all is when British, American, and Canadian troops go to Ukraine to train that military and NATO tactics, NATO equipment. The photographs show that they're training the Azov battalion because those were the first units Ukrainian military brought forward for training. We trained Nazis.
I'm stupid. I married Dominic Giacoppa's daughter.
Quite ready yet. Let's keep it going then.
I'm ready. Can you hear me?
There you are.
We got her.
Oh, well, it's so great. We didn't see you pop up right away. Laura, great to have you this morning. I wanted to start with this breaking news overnight that it appears, and there you are. You popped up for us. It's so great to see you. The Daily Mail has a very interesting story that's saying that Vladimir Putin essentially may be running out of bullets, that he might have a week and a half, 2 weeks max. He's losing warplanes, tanks, all the rest of it. He obviously went into this thinking he was going to bulldoze his way through Ukraine. He's obviously caused a lot of destruction. Don't want to minimize the fact there's over 2 million refugees. But this has not gone as well as Vladimir Putin expected.
I don't buy it for a second, Ed, I'll be honest with you. I really think that there's so much misinformation. We've never really seen anything like it. I mean, I've been covering wars now for 35 years, and I have never seen people with their nails done in the Ukrainian flag, right? I mean, we're being corralled into this box where we either have to hate Vladimir Putin and believe everything evil that's said about him and love Ukraine, and there's no in between. And that reminds me a lot of you're either, a white supremacist or you go with the Democrat narrative on everything under the sun. So Vladimir Putin knew exactly what he was doing when he went into Ukraine. The Russian military isn't perfect. They, for example, I've spoken to multiple defense specialists and intelligence specialists from a Defense Intelligence Agency who've studied the Russian military for years. They do have a difficulty mounting complex air operations because they do very little training hours in comparison to, for example, the United States air assets, right, our fighter jet pilots. But Russia is not struggling. What Russia has done from the very beginning has been very strategic. They didn't go straight to Kiev. They went to all those bioweapons laboratories that are scattered all over the country. Some of them they built, so they know where they are. They've known where they are since the Soviet Union, because under the Defense Threat Reduction Program, we went in after the fall of the Soviet Union and supposedly turned those facilities from bioweapons labs into public health labs. Although, these days it's hard to believe anything that our leaders tell us because they've lied about COVID, they lied about Russia collusion, they lied about the Ukraine impeachment trial, and there's so much more going on in Ukraine that nobody is talking about. You see such dishonesty when it comes to the history of Ukraine. You see dishonesty when it comes to the Azov battalion, which is funded by the U.S. and NATO. I mean, you can find pictures of them online holding up the NATO flag and the swastika at the same time. Their own emblem contains the black sun of the occult, which was a Nazi SS emblem. And it also contains the sideways, lightning insignia of the SS. I mean, this is on throughout the Ukrainian military. You can see that black sun of the occult on their body armor, even on the female soldiers who are paraded in front of the world as being, such an example of Ukraine's independence and spirit and nobility. Even they are wearing the black sun of the occult. And, the White House wants you to believe, well, this doesn't matter. It's just a small number of troops. It's not true. The Azov battalion has been murdering its way through eastern Ukraine.
Yeah.
We don't want to admit this. This was why Crimea voted for independence. This is why Crimea wanted to be with Russia. Because we in the media, in the Western media and in the West, won't acknowledge the reality of what's gone on.
Laura's beating it down to that blonde lady's mouth is hung down.
It was a headquarters for the Nazi SS. The CIA under Alan Dulles actually gave immunity from prosecution
this guy's
to the Nazis of Ukraine from the Nuremberg trials. So there's a long history of the United States and our intelligence agencies funding and arming Nazis in Ukraine. These are not like new neo-Nazi groups that sprung up. These are the actual Nazis from the Second World War, who, if you go back to the Nuremberg trials, said that they were planning for a 1,000-year Reich. And so you have to really wonder as you look at this, when you know that the CIA sponsored the color revolution in Ukraine in 2013 and 14, that they selected Ukraine's leaders, go to Victoria Nuland's leaked phone conversation where she and the U.S. ambassador are deciding who can lead Ukraine. I mean, there's as much interference here as you could possibly imagine before you even get to Hunter Biden, Nancy Pelosi, John Kerry, and Mitt Romney, and all of their children who are employed, who earn millions from Ukrainian gas companies.
Yeah, you were pointing, pardon me, to a real credibility crisis for our leaders. I want to let Karen Turk jump in.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up the fact that President Zelensky is Jewish, and I don't know exactly how this factors in, but there's some very interesting points in what you're saying. And looking at this, you could think it's political theatrics. You made a very good point at the beginning that you think that Putin is in control. And I actually want to play something that Jen Psaki said, because it seems that the White House is actually echoing that sentiment. Watch this.
Well, the end game is really a question for President Putin. We have completely crushed his economy. We have provided military assistance, humanitarian assistance to the Ukrainians, enabling them to fight back for far longer than the Russian leadership anticipated. And again, he has to determine what the path forward looks like for him. Thanks, everyone.
He's determining what this looks like, and I think that's a lot of what you said, Laura. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, what you just watched.
What troubles me about the moment that we're in is that we have such a selective and a narrow reading of history. President Zelensky may be Jewish, but he's not the only one in this who suffered during the Second World War, whose ancestors suffered, right? I mean, look at Putin. How many relatives did he lose in the siege of St. Petersburg? People don't know their history. They don't know what made Vladimir Putin. And I'm not I'm not defending him. I don't need to defend Vladimir Putin. My job as a journalist is to try to understand what is the truth here. I don't like being lied to. And we're being lied to on an epic scale. When we're told your only choice is you have to be 100% with Zelensky, who's a puppet, who you can find on the internet in black stilettos and leather pants, with shirtless, doing a spoof Dancing with the Stars kind of entertainment video. That's a mock of a Ukrainian group that does this kind of satanic occult type of music video. And I mean, Zelensky was selected like so many of our leaders. And honestly, with big tech and with election fraud these days, we don't know how many leaders all around the world have been selected for us and weren't actually voted in. But what we do know is that there are increasing problems with technology and the digitization of our world. Because look at what's happening with COVID. Look at what has happened globally. We are fighting the same battles all over the world. To pretend that this war is about Russia and Ukraine is just a barefaced lie. If Putin has been warning for 15 years that he is not going to stand by while the globalists take over the world, build bioweapons facilities and whatever else they're doing in Ukraine. Ukrainian oligarchs. Ukraine has been a center of money laundering for, many of the leaders in this country. For how long? Billions of US dollars have been laundered through Ukraine, and we say nothing about it. These are our tax dollars. I mean, before the impeachment trial, had you ever heard of anyone in the United States, us bringing in foreign governments to the White House for anti-corruption training? I mean, does nobody question these things? Why do we not question them? We have an idiot like Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who goes at the impeachment trial and sits there as a lieutenant colonel. He didn't even make colonel. And he's telling the president of the United States what his policy should be. You have a traitor in the form of Maria Yovanovitch, who was Obama's ambassador, who's telling Ukrainian government officials, don't listen to the will of the American people. Don't listen to the election results. We are the true leaders of America. I mean, and then people object when the woman isn't even fired. She's given a cushy job for life at Georgetown University at the expense of the U.S. taxpayer. And we're told that the president of the United States cannot say to his foreign counterparts, that we want you to look into something. But Joe Biden can withhold as much aid as he wants to. I mean, there's so much hypocrisy and dishonesty here, and Ukraine is at the center of it all. Go back to Russia collusion. Go to Alexander Chalupa. Go to Eric Karamella, the whistleblower who went to work for Adam Schiff, who wasn't really a whistleblower, and all those corrupt people in the deep state. And you know what? The deep state isn't a theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's an actual deep state. Look up the SES, the Senior Executive Service, because when that bureaucracy was ushered into law in the United States of America, that's when we got a bunch of unelected bureaucrats pulling the strings behind the scenes. And these are the people that keep lying to us.
Absolutely. And pardon me, we've got a live chat where we're streaming on Getter, for example, and I'm watching it as you're talking. People are talking about how you're dropping truth bombs and you're a real journalist. And I know that, having worked alongside you for many, many years when you're at CBS.
Now you got to go.
Vespa, daughter of Roland, king of the Druids.
Oh, that's all we needed. A Jewish princess.
That was correct. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of News from the Pew, where I, your humble host, Rick Barrett, the Armed Catholic, find four guys hanging outside your local Bennigan's on this St. Patrick's Day and bring them in to give you their Catholic and cultural commentary. So let's introduce them. First of all, from Senses Fidelis, that is Mr. Steve Cunningham right there. Right after that is Mr. Ryan Grant, the owner of Mediatrix Press. You can check out is it mediatrixpress.com, Ryan? That you can you can check out his stuff. Then you have Mr. Jonathan Arrington, our resident Florida man, who does all kinds of awesome things there. What is the latest thing that you are working on, Jonathan, that you'd like everybody to know about? You're muted.
You're muted.
Some tutoring in Latin, Greek, and theology for homeschoolers and other interested folks who want to learn the sacred languages or sacred theology.
Is there a website they can find that kind of stuff? Or
yes, it's a pun on, or a kind of a part of the pun of the old Life of Brian. It's ite domum, like go home. That the folks in Monty Python were having a hard time with. The Brits trying to learn their Latin.
Romanes eunt domus.
The worst Latin ever, finally converted into about whatever it was 1,000 times, written correctly. Ite domum, go home.
Well, the centurion comes by to correct him. Yeah. And then he's doing the little Latin lesson. I actually showed that to my students. So I edit the part of that out because it uses vulgar language afterward.
And finally, welcoming him back after a much missed absence the week before, Mr. Fawaz Yazzi, who I can still not say his name correctly, but he's got a Catholic rap album coming out called Traditionis, coming out April 19th on all major digital stores and streams. Congratulations on that, Fawaz. I've heard some of your stuff on Instagram. It's as the kids say, it's gonna be pretty tight. So now that you know all the players and where they're sitting at that corner booth here in Bennigan's, let's get to our top stories of the last week. can't start off without acknowledging kind of a bomb that was dropped on all of us a couple days ago from Pope Francis on March 15th, which was 17th Tuesday, where he just kind of sent out a random tweet that said on Friday, March 25th, during the celebration of penance in St. Peter's Basilica at 12 noon Eastern Time, I will consecrate Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of Mary, which pretty much all of Catholic YouTube went, really? I know when I got the message at first, I said, nah, that can't be possible. That's not right. Not this Pope. No, there's no way that happens. So it's very interesting to see Catholics respond to this. And let's see, who was the first to go up? We'll throw it, since he missed last week, we want to get him in. Fawaz, you're going to go first this week. Your reaction when this should be massive announcement about the consecration, because we've all been like, I should just do the consecration to Russia. And he's like, okay. And we go, no, you can't. Your thoughts?
Hey, thanks guys so much. Yeah, my brother sent me the tweet, and I had to go on Twitter and check it for myself to make sure that it wasn't some type of spoof, because you could fabricate these things pretty easily. So when I found out that it was actually legit, I decided to send it to other folks. And my initial reaction was, first, I was surprised. But then I'm thinking about, Francis does this a lot. Sometimes, he'll give the folks that support him and want him up there all the attention that they want. But sometimes he'll drop some crumbs to us faithful Catholics. With the fraternity and things like that. He likes to talk on both sides. But when I saw that, it's kudos. You gotta clap and give kudos to people when they do something great, and criticize folks in charity when they do something that is contrary to the faith, and vice versa. So I thought this was a great a win. We're all hoping and praying that he does it the way that Our Lady ordered it to be done. I know Pius XII did it, I think, twice. John Paul II did it twice or three times. Paul VI, I think, even did it once. None of them seem to be getting this right. It's actually very simple. So he's doing the consecration. He's mentioning Russia. If we can get all the bishops and across the world to join him in this, and kudos to, for example, Bishop Strickland, who's asking the bishops in this country to join Pope Francis, even Athanasius Schneider, who has a novena that leads up to the 25th, and we can all join in that. So, just kudos to the Pope for taking this direction. And I think no matter what, hopefully there's be some meritorious grace that come out of it. At least we're pleading and asking headquarters to help us out, which is what we should be doing anyways. But when it's done from the hierarchy, from the Holy Father himself, I think it shows it's something that's good. So let's give him props for that.
Absolutely. Jonathan, in addition to what Fawaz just said, can you comment on the reaction? Because as soon as this announcement dropped, everybody that is, I guess, YouTube, known here on YouTube or on Twitter, were automatically firing out, for lack of a better term, negative takes on it. And I get it. I get the negative take aspect, because as Fawaz just said, he kind of throws crumbs at us, but at the same time declaring war on things like the traditional mass. So if you want to give us your take on the just casual announcement of this, and really more the reaction of us as Catholics to it.
Well, the thing that jumps out at you right off the bat is that there are a lot of people who are eating crow, as we like to say down south, so they were just so sure that this had already been done. So, what would be the point of it being done again? And one is actually it's a friend, but let's put it this way. A very well-known Italian Catholic writer who has a website that also offers most of their articles in English as well. And he's been very outspoken, vociferously outspoken about how all this already happened. You're basically a conspiracy theorist and goofball if you think otherwise. That Russia's already been consecrated properly by John Paul II, at least. Why not Pius XII? Then, what was there something missing with Pius XII? If so, why is one thing missing? Okay, with John Paul II. But you never get to have a conversation with folks who first thing out their mouth is either Hitler or conspiracy theorists. You're not going to have a useful conversation. But he was backtracking immediately. Oh well, let's examine now, and in his very academic Italian, let us examine what's going on here. And he wasn't the only one. I try to follow some of the different countries. Granted, the French have not been too, as far as I can tell, haven't gone one way or the other before, saying you're definitely a crank if you think that there's not been the consecration done properly before. So they haven't had to backtrack quite as much. But the thing I thought of just in general that makes sense, I guess you will, about what's going on, is that God likes to humble us. That's as Father Ripperger likes to say in a lot of his talks. It's the one prayer that God will always grant. You pray for humility, and He's going to grant it usually quickly and in a way that you hadn't expected. But we need that in our modern age more than anything else. Humility. We do not have it. It's even just reading a secular book by Daniel Pink on the whole no regret culture. I have no regrets. That's a sign of a lack of humility, actually, to have no regrets. I mean, for a Catholic, it's easy to see that, but for the modern world to be talking about it, they're even seeing that there's a pride issue. So yes, Francis has been a disaster as a pope throughout most of his pontificate for all that is true, good, and beautiful. That's pretty. You can document that. You can verify that. But God needs to humble His people. That's one of the preconditions for a restoration of the faith, both in civil society and in the interior life of the church, is a restoration of humility. So what better way to do it than to throw, everyone. Come on, name me one person who thought, yes, I'm willing to bet that pretty soon Francis is going to consecrate Russia and Ukraine to the Immaculate Heart of Mary. Come on. Nobody was seriously confident that was going to happen. We needed to be humbled. I know I did. So that's the thing that comes to me, is that we needed humility, and the Pope he has free will, but more than anybody else in the world, the Pope is not his own man. He is truly, St. Gregory the Great put it well, he is a servus servorum Dei. He's a servant of the servants of God. And so, the Holy Ghost has a little bit more control over what he can do to lead, to prompt, to push the Pope in a way that we don't have access to, because we're not the Pope. You're given certain graces of state, and the Pope's given that. And, this was what God and Our Lady needed and wanted right now. And so it happened. Even if Pope Francis has other reasons why he wanted it done, it's happening. And I think it's going to be a good thing for our humility and for the church overall.
Yeah, it does speak to that phrase that God does whatever He wants through whoever. And it is kind of a humility is probably the best phrase to give in that regards. Steve, being a YouTuber in the Catholic space, how hard was it for you to fight the urge to give instant commentary to this announcement?
Pretty easy. I don't think I said anything really about it. There was a group I'm in. They haven't stopped talking about it. Even I had a buddy of mine say, would you like to read the novena into the channel? So someone else is doing it. I go, dude, I don't have any time for that. No, I didn't. I'll believe when I see it, I guess. I'm taking that approach. I remember a buddy of Jonathan and I's, Mershon, talked about this a couple of years ago. Go, how amazing would that be if the Holy Father consecrates Russia? Because he's done this before throughout this crumble. Was it 1 or 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, and it didn't happen. He changed his mind, I guess. But another Hitchborn had a great text to me the other day, or text for the group, and he mentioned how the bad bishops will probably go with him on this because they want to save face and do what he does, not, maybe not believe in what the reasoning is on it. And you got the good bishops that will do it because they actually understand the idea of it. So he goes, who knows? This might be the one that actually does it. Personally, I'm going, they're going to screw it up somehow, and it's going to get worse by 2029. So I left the optimism business. I remember Kevin Gutzman used to say that long ago. So Honestly, I don't know. I believe when I see it, but if he does it right, then glory be. I mean, can't wait. I mean, all those guys that said the consecration has happened, like Dr. Michael Jones and Nelson Genis and all that, and there's another priest on there that's talking about how it's been done. We're like, okay, when was this piece? Was it 5 seconds? Was it like a hack tip? All right, we got some piece, put it back on. I mean, where's the peace for the last, I don't know, was it going on 20 years, 18 years now? It's been literally a war ever since the 84 consecration. Obviously, eyeball test, either if the peace happened in less than 5 seconds, or Mama Mary's got some explaining to do.
Yeah, and so, Ryan, the question is, thoughts on the just dropping of the question, and are we working against the theological virtue of hope by being so negative in our response? And instead of being like Steve said, cautiously optimistic, I'll believe it when I see it. But there are just some people that are like, nope, can't be done. Francis is a heretic. Francis isn't Pope, all that kind of stuff. So that puts us in kind of a tough position, isn't it, as Catholics, because we want to be hopeful, but there's such the disdain or just negative energy towards Pope Francis from certain communities that it's hard to live out that virtue.
Well, when the announcement was made, I made the joke in several places, I think, and privately, that I can't wait to see the Venn diagram where it meets in the middle of trad, Benedictus Pope people, Sedevacantis, Sordo, consecration was valid, consecration was invalid, the 84 consecration, that is, and all these different groups on everything. Can't wait to see that just blow up, which it did, quite predictably. And I think, there are a number of things to say on that subject altogether. Especially when I first became a traditionalist, I was trying to piece together and learn what all this Fatima stuff was about. I found it confusing and bewildering, everything with the third secret. And I tried to get into a little bit, heard some good lectures by people, Father Brunner, for example, John Bernari. I heard other people that I respect that, no, it was a valid consecration. It's like, I don't know. I don't speak Portuguese. I am not going to wade into this thing. The only thing that I've kind of come to the conclusion of is that, if you're going to continue to argue that the 84 consecration was not valid, which I'm sympathetic to very strongly, you basically have to fall into, there was a fake Sister Lucia, because you have video of her from a journalist named Carlos Evaristo. And Father Gruner challenged him. He said, here's the evidence. And he got her on video saying, yeah, the 84 consecration was valid. So either that was not the real Sister Lucy, as some theories hold, or it really did happen, or she thought it happened and maybe died. And so I don't know. I'm not wading into any of this stuff. I don't have the time. Somebody does. Somebody's doing right. I mean, I don't know if anyone has written more on this than Frere Michel. And that was one resource that I'd looked into. But it's so complicated. I'm at the point where it's like, what can I do? And I put this on Twitter when I saw this going on. It's like, you can write all you want about everything that's going on. You could write all these things, but really, prayer and fasting for the triumph of the Immaculate Heart is what will change things. You writing on Twitter or spending hours on Facebook threads, Fedbook threads, or getting into forums or whatever it is, those will never. I mean, you are who? And why is the Pope going to get on Twitter and look at, oh, well, I better do the consecration right this time? No, that's not how it's going to work. But if you pray, for the Immaculate Triumph of the Immaculate Heart, that will affect something. If you do the 5 first Saturdays, which a lot of people don't do, some people do. And I'm not saying everyone who's commenting, doesn't do them. But, I mean, we know how this goes. There are a lot of people that are very vociferous on all things Fatima, but are weak in their devotion to the Holy Rosary, and they don't go to 5 first Saturdays. There are people like that. And so you have to really take a look at that and look at it yourself. Am I getting wrapped up in this whole discussion because it's, I'm on the trad team, so we have to argue this way, and some people are, and some people it's just that's the way they see it. Or am I really practicing the theological virtue of hope here? And just because Pope Francis has been largely had a very negative impact on the church as a whole. Definitely not a pope that I am terribly favorable to, but he's still the pope, right? That, and so if he says he's going to do this is something, again, prayer and contribution, because that's a good thing. And even if he doesn't do it, because some people will be out there, well, Our Lady didn't say Russia and Ukraine, she just said Russia, why can't anyone just do what she said? And again, I don't even know those specifics and the semantic details of what she did say or didn't say, or what counts or doesn't count. It's not even a thing I want to get into. If it's not valid, it's going to have some effect. And that's a good thing too. So it's just, if you want it to be done and have the effect that Our Lady promised at Fatima, you have to pray, and you have to, seriously be a part of it, and not get too distracted by this or that other thing going on, which is easy to do, especially we're in the middle of Lent. And we should be, during the whole period of the Great Lent, we should be focusing, our intentions on being like Christ in the desert as much as our state and life allows, and not allow something like this to get us back onto, going crazy, weaving in, picking through all the different books and start rehashing again all these arguments of the last, 30 years, 40 years, 60 years. If I recall correctly, Sister Lucia said the third sacred should be revealed by 1960. It wasn't. And, God allowed that to happen, folks. He did, for whatever reason. That's, it's in his permissive will. And likewise on everything to do with the consecration. But he is the one. He can make even a very bad pope suddenly say, I need to do something. And whatever you write on Twitter and Fedbook, we think that we're empowered because we can get to write something and someone across the world can see it. I'm sorry, in the long run, of what you write on Twitter doesn't mean nearly as much as making a holy hour, visiting a church, praying the rosary with devotion and faith. That's where, where we should be. And so that's kind of just my take on it. It's like, and I know there are people very much invested, spend lots of time reading every book that ever was on Fatima. And if their spiritual lives are in order, hey, great, somebody's got to do it. But there's also a lot of people who do that and do not have their spiritual lives in order. And so, and I think they should really do some introspection and say, yeah, you know what? If I want this thing to happen, I got to pray for it.
There's definitely, we'll jump to you in a second because I know you want to piggyback on this, but there's also many a novena, St. Boniface Institute at 1 Peter 5. They're all offering different novenas for this to be done, quote unquote, correctly. So there's no shortages of, or even just praying an extra rosary. And I really think that's the way to approach it, instead of saying, oh, well, it's because of Francis, it can't work. Now you're doubting God, and I'm not going to be on, you and I are not going to be having a really deep conversation about that. Steve, you wanted to jump in?
Yeah, just exactly what Ryan said is, even if he screws it up, you're going to get something good after Pius XII. They said something good happened after JP2. You saw Berlin Wall, maybe that was part of it. We will never know on this side of the veil, but something good will come out of it. So be happy about that. I know that's the H word no one likes talking about, is being happy or joyful. But yeah, there's a group I'm in, and they were all about petitions. We got petition this bishop. We got petition this bishop. We got petition these guys. And Garanger writes in his write-up on St. Thomas of Canterbury about the conversion of King Henry II, and he goes, "Did Thomas petition the people to do this, or did the people petition the king to change his mind? Did anybody petition this? To petition this?" He's going over. He goes, "No, they got on their knees and prayed for conversion." And as Ryan was talking about, are we doing that? We worry about petitions all the time. I remember going out to Prince of Peace one time, and they said, can you sign this petition? I go, no, I'm tired of petitions. What does petitions do? Name me a time when petitions work in the history of petitions. It never do anything. But if you drop on your knees and you do some penance, then maybe it goes. There's a priest that did a sermon. At the end of it, he goes, how many laity are out there doing the 5 First Saturdays? Why aren't the churches packed on 5 First Saturdays? Not every church does a First Saturday mass. Why aren't there masses on Saturdays? We got a lot of it's not just on the Pope to do that. We got to pick up some of this. Maybe that line from St. Paul, we make up what is lacking in Christ's suffering. The laity can do some of that too, make up what is lacking and what other people would we point. Hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? when we're not doing as much as we can, and we complain to other people and then sit back and say, hey, why don't you do this job when we don't do anything? Just complain about it.
Yeah, that is something that we're very good at as Americans. We like to complain about stuff, and hopefully somebody else will do something about it. Speaking of lazy Americans, another big story this week was the continued conflict in the Ukraine, and as I like to call him, nobody else can call him, Tank Top Zelensky, because he can't be anywhere without showing off his guns in the tightest t-shirt he can find. He made his address to Congress, and it for me, it very much mimicked that old Apple 1984 ad.
Colleagues, Slava Ukraina. Slava Ukraina. Mr. President, it is my honor to present to you the Congress of the United States, which has great respect and admiration and appreciation for your courageous leadership. Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you the President of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky. Slava Ukraina. Slava Ukraina.
Look at that t-shirt. He's definitely showing off them guns with that t-shirt, folks.
She butchered it.
Oh, of course she did.
I'm glad she did, because it's not, I think, the best thing to say, but Slava, it's Ukraini. But in any case,
John, we're just lucky that she was able to stand up straight for 5 minutes to get the thing started.
And you notice she called him Vladimir. She didn't say Volodymyr. She didn't say it in the Ukrainian way. She said Vladimir. Oh,
yes, she's getting a simpleton like me didn't get that, but that's why we have Jonathan here with us on News from the Pew to catch these kind of things. But so Zelensky makes his announcements, and he asks for the no-fly zone, and he's begging for more weapons and funding, which we've shoved so much money down into the country of Ukraine in the last 2 weeks. I don't think people even understand. $1.2 billion has been at least $1.2 billion has been sent has been approved this week as a result of that speech. And the escalation, and I've said it on this program before, I think the end goal is not nuclear. I think the end goal is to get the Russians bogged down into another Afghanistan for them, where they'll just be spending time and energy and money on this, so the boomers here in the US and in NATO can finally fulfill their dream of finally, fighting them Ruskies. But Fawaz, your take on just how this is being played out, the propaganda machine that's being used, and the elevation of Vladimir Woodrow Wilson, Optimus Prime Zelensky to role of hero of Earth.
That's good. I saw bits and pieces of the speech, but it reminds me of when they were propping up Lord Farquaad Fauci. They have a fixation on midgets for some reason. So the funny part about it is they keep propping up these individuals, and they keep putting these labels to them. Fauci was the science. Zelensky seems to be the freedom, and he was installed. Of course, we all know this under the Obama administration, or put in by the Color Revolution at the time. And at the very beginning, we were watching that video with Laura Logan, I believe that's her name. She put up some good points. You live in an unholy society because a holy soul, as an individual soul, is rightly ordered and virtuous. But an unholy soul, a soul that's obviously not holy, is a soul that is viceful. And what is vice? It's excess and defect. And she talked about this extreme of you either got to be on this side or got to be on this side. And there's so much misinformation out there that they literally try to pin you to one direction or the other. And if you pick the other direction that's not part of their agenda, you're labeled a name. So that way you could be shamed in society as that person. So it seems to me, if we're going to take the media as face value, which I don't, because we've learned the hard way with the last couple of years, especially. It seems to me that they could have stopped this invasion before it even happened. Which, if I can direct this into a spiritual sense, it's the same that we should be approaching our lives. A lot of times we'll commit sin and then we'll end up in this habitual state. And then now it's so much harder for us we get cornered. It's so much harder for us to get out of it when we should have just avoided the sin to begin with. I think that the West could have done a lot more to avoid this, to get Putin not to go in. And now you've demolished his economy. You've gotten the citizens of Russia, an unfair advantage. And then now the guy is cornered to such a degree. If the information that he's bombing civilians is true, then he's cornered in, which is he's more dangerous than ever, because he's trying to get this done as quickly as possible. It seems to me like he wants Zelensky either to be out of the picture, or he wants Zelensky to actually strike a deal with Putin so Putin can get the majority of what he wants, so then he can declare a victory. And at the same time, you can have Zelensky declare, hey, we resisted. We're never going to join NATO or the UE, but at least we got what we wanted. And, I'm still president of Ukraine, still exists. So there might be this half deal that they're coming up with. So it's really interesting. I can't speak too much of it because I don't know what the truth is, to be honest. There's so many things being weaving here and there. I just don't know where to start. But I will say this: for a fact you are living in a society that is unholy, because it is a society that is literally operating in excess and defect, which is the definition of vice.
Absolutely. And Steve's putting up a couple pictures here that you guys can see on the screen. The first one, this came out, I think on Monday or Tuesday, where if you can see, there's the photo, the guy's taking a picture of her as they put a Ukrainian flag on the slab where the body of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was laid after his removal from the cross, because apparently the world is praying for Ukraine. I'll just say this much: if you do this in front of me, some tables are getting flipped and some flags are getting dragged and burned, because I don't play that game. I ain't playing that nonsensical game here. And then this picture here, I found this today. This is from one of those Ukrainian propagandist news outlets, where they have our beautiful Holy Mother, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And I'm sure everybody can pick out why this upset me when I saw this as well. There seems to be some references to the white nationalists, neo-Nazis, in the same picture with our beautiful, holy, blessed mother. And once again,
where's all the Twitter priests that scream every time somebody says the rosary is a weapon? Oh, no, you can't say that. The rosary is not violence. The rosary is about peace. You can't compare it to a weapon. But now this is cool. And they're not a word.
Nope. It's approved blasphemy. Approved blasphemy.
Yeah.
100%. Jonathan, your thoughts on these, as well as the continued conflict in the Ukraine?
Well, I have a lot of dear friends who are in the Ukraine or who are Ukrainian and are expats now living either in the United States or in Italy. So I sympathize with their fear, what's going on. I mean, most of them are not into the same alternative media outlets that we are in. So they are being fed the lines that everyone else in the U.S. is being fed on the major media outlets. So I sympathize, with the difficulties. But these dear friends of mine, they're all Byzantine Greek Catholics. How they cannot see those images right there that we just had up, and thank you. I mean, good gosh, I can't even really look. That disturbs me. Like, I'm disturbed. I'm shaken by just having seen that, because that is blasphemous in the sense that it's an affront to Our Lady, and so indirectly, at least, it's an offense against God too. How they cannot note that there's something wrong with that. There's something wrong with the Ukrainian flag. Yes, I know the blue is for heaven and all that. Yes, it's to be in heaven with him. But to lay a flag there on the tomb, that just, I don't know. I'm speechless, because it should wake up so many of the good Greek Catholics, Ukrainian Greek Catholics, and others who have dear friends who are Ukrainian Greek Catholics who have understandably been upset about all this. They should know that this is a step too far. This should be the thing that ticks them off and says, yeah, okay, just no more. No, I know I'm being played. I'm being hoodwinked here. But sadly, I don't know. Maybe enough people haven't seen the images But I find that a little bit hard to believe, just given how much other spread the Ukrainian stuff has gotten in the news, that those pictures wouldn't have made it across to most of these friends of mine. They were either priests or daily liturgy goers even. So not your average sort of Catholic, but it should be waking people up. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it is. It is always disturbing to see images from the Catholic faith, which has always been used as propaganda tools because of the universality of the church. But Ryan, thoughts on this week in the Ukraine, the reaction to Zelensky's speech, and now the fact that we're just tossing ammo, guns, money, whatever we can into the bottomless pit that apparently is the Ukraine, and your take on the use of Catholic imagery to promote the goodness of the Ukrainian cause.
You really have to look at, who's pushing this thing so hard and why. Every celebrity is lined up behind Ukraine. Every political messaging is behind Ukraine. And, all the media, that's the thing. They're pushing it the same way they pushed masks during the unspecified virus of unspecified origin, the same way they pushed the jabs for the unspecified virus of unspecified origin, the same way that they, made a cult out of following the guidelines of health departments and things like that. Same people are now pushing Ukraine and put on Ukrainian flags in your profile. And whenever that happens, you have to just stop and ask the question, why? And now on the other side, you've got Putin, who is a thug and came to power by blowing up apartment buildings, blaming it on Muslims. And he's former KGB. As far as I'm concerned, he's always going to be KGB. He's not your hero. He's not your savior of Western civilization. So my view is we have two villains and no good guys in the whole thing. And the only people, so I've more or less tuned out of anything to do with that conflict, except for praying for the innocent civilians. Like I said last week, the people who are going to suffer is going to be the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church. It's going to be innocent civilians in the Ukraine. That's who's going to suffer in all this, and that's who I'm praying for. Otherwise, I've more or less tuned out. I'm more interested in what's going on elsewhere. But it's like, what does the magician do to pull off the trick? He has you watching here, but not what's going on behind his back. Not what's going on in the mirrors or whatever, however he does the trick. So it's a similar thing with the powers that shouldn't be, is that they want you focused on Ukraine while they're doing other things, which we'll talk about in a second. But the religious imagery, it's absolutely blasphemous. It's one thing to say, oh, I support Ukraine and make it, it's go into the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and say special prayers for peace in Ukraine. Well, that's completely fine. But to then stick the flag of a specific nation on top of the, in the Holy Sepulchre, in the place where Christ, by tradition, was laid and then rose again. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just blasphemy for any nation to do that. For a merely secular thing, it's blasphemous. Same thing, the art, the imagery, but it's the typical thing you have when you have propaganda, and you're propagandizing all sides. Ukraine, there's the faith is still pretty strong in Ukraine, from my understanding of it. And so between the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, and the Roman Catholic Church in Ukraine, so with all of that, a little surprised that they really bring on the heavy-handed propaganda. But for me, I'm looking at this, and you have all these things with surveillance of money transfers that are going on right now, as everyone's focused on Ukraine. So I've actually got one or two things to show why I'm pretty much not interested in in the powers that shouldn't be giving us their heroes and giving us their villains. So let's start over here. The World Health Organization has signed a contract with Deutsche Telekom to build a software solution for global electronic verification of coronavirus vaccination certificates. Right, and that's from Reuters, not from crazy conspiracy theorist.
You didn't cite it from AlexJones.net?
Yeah, exactly. And then here's another one. Coinbase blocks 25,000 Russian crypto wallet addresses. DHS, Department of Homeland Security, took part in mass surveillance of money transfers, Senator says. And so on and so forth. So the surveillance is ramping up, the ID, and they're working on digital ID. In red states, there's tech companies working on digital ID and putting it together with government programs that'll meet their guidelines. That will also coincide with the experimental medical therapy for the unspecified virus of unspecified origin or whatever else comes down the pike. So while everyone's saying, yay, cheers, Ukraine, and mispronouncing their Ukrainian slogans, that's what's going on in the background. So that's why this whole conflict, it's, they try to give you your heroes, you give you your villains. They've created this fake image of Putin as your hero that's going to save you on the right. And if there are people who've gone into that in alternative media, there's trad Catholics that have gone in for that. Oh, look what he's doing in Russia. He's got all these banning homosexual parades and stuff like that. Yeah, the number of abortions is still, it's one of the highest places for abortion in the world is Russia. The state censorship, the state restrictions on freedom, you would never, most American treds would never tolerate the kind of state that Vladimir Putin presides over in Russia. So it's a mix of goods and bads over there, and he's not a hero, and neither is Zelensky. So I'm checked out of it all.
Exactly. And also one thing that happened is that the Biden regime okayed temporary protection status for the 70,000 Afghans that they airlifted out of Afghanistan. The ones they were like, hey, do you want to get on this plane? How about you get on this plane too? So 70,000, which means they can get jobs, they can't be deported even if they're terrorists or they do despicable things, which we've heard they're on these US bases they've actually started to do as well. Jonathan, I want you to jump in, and then we'll go to Steve.
All right, just quickly, because Ryan mentioned it, it makes the great point. Look, of course, Putin is no hero, but my only frustration is that there aren't a ton of people out there suggesting that. And so I see that as a little bit of a smokescreen, all things considered, because you may find a rare crazy person on Twitter or Facebook who says that, maybe, if you look really hard. But there are, even the most rad trad folks, I don't think are saying that in large numbers. Maybe I just don't pay enough attention. I haven't been on Facebook a lot, and I'm almost never on Twitter, so I don't know. But one thing that is sure, whether or not that's a smokescreen, is that there is a hero issue on the Ukrainian side, and because I'm a friend of mine texted me after last week's episode here, he had watched and he said, you forgot to include the second half of Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine. And it's glory to the heroes. Now, you can be a devout Catholic Ukrainian or devout Orthodox and say, yes, for our many Ukrainian martyrs. But I'm telling you, that is not the common understanding of who those heroes are when people are saying glory to the Ukraine, Slava Ukraini. The heroes are those who are going to do whatever it takes for the furtherment of the Ukrainian nation right now, by whatever means. And you just look at what those means have been so far, and I haven't heard any Ukrainians complaining about this. We're going to give convicts, folks who are in jail in Ukraine, and that, yes, a lot of it's opposition folks who are, from the local media that they want to silence. That happens to some people there in Ukraine. That is true, but the majority of folks in Ukrainian jails are actually true thugs. And so giving them weapons and then just not caring or not giving too much indication of what's going to happen afterward. And they're going to end up being called your heroes if they go down shooting, but shooting at whom? And shooting with what cause? Just shooting a Russian because it's a Russian. What if it's a Russian who's lived in Ukraine his or her entire life? So there is a hero complex, but I don't think, maybe I'm wrong. If so, one of you guys, please correct me, because I'll take the correction. But I don't think there are many folks out there on our side, on our Tradcat side, who are saying that Putin's really a hero. But there are, on the other side, for the Ukrainians, there's an issue there, in my opinion.
There's certainly a lot more on the other side saying that Zelensky is a hero and Zelensky is, the guy to back and following that. But I have seen it on the trad side, and it's not a lockstep kind of thing. But there are a lot of people that are like, and they're falling into the trap that we're trying very carefully to avoid. Yeah, we don't trust NATO and the celebrities and the banks and the meta narrative and everything going, yay, Ukraine, yay, Zelensky. But at the same time, we're saying, yeah, but Putin's not good either, and something else is going on here. Whereas there's a lot of people that see the meta narrative and they see, the push and by all the wrong people saying, yeah, we back Ukraine, and they're saying, oh, well, I think Putin must be the good guy, quote unquote, and that's, and the things that Putin's done over the years. I know people personally that think like Putin is like this, this great guy is restoring Christianity to Russia. He's prepping the way for the consecration of the Immaculate Heart in Russia to convert, because he's bringing back Orthodox Christianity, which will convert when the consecration happens, and all this sort of thing. And, believe that if you will, none of my business, but I'm not seeing the same thing.
Hey, Ryan, can you I know we're trying to get to Steve, but Ryan, can you share that tweet that you just put up about
that was me.
Oh, well, no, Ryan Grant you also have something on your Twitter feed about a list of unhinged Putin defenders.
Oh,
yeah. So somebody just sent this to,
which I'm very impressed. I've never been on one of these lists before. I'm pretty excited.
I know, right? Yeah, somebody just sent this to me. I have no idea where this comes from.
We're all on it.
And yeah, we're all on it. And it's like we've all said the opposite.
So hey,
here, let me do the share screen thing again.
Hi, random person. Thank you for watching News from the Pew.
Awesome.
Make sure you like, subscribe, and share. So all of your friends can hate us. That would be even better.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be marvelous.
That's the other problem is that there's a lot from the other side calling us Putin fanatics or cheerleaders for Putin when clearly we're not, right? That's an odd.
So yeah, I just pointed out that I've never, for years I've been taking flack.
I'm number 2.
You're number 2, which I don't get how that is. Ann Barnhart's of course number 1. And I have no idea what she is.
I need to step up my game.
It's actually funny that I'm on the same list with Barnhart. We don't exactly have a cozy relationship. But,
I'm just honored to be here.
Yeah, Frank Walker, Frank and I got into when I first got on Twitter, so that's kind of amusing too. Bannon, Matt, Dr. Mazza, and then I'm number 9, and then of course there's Fawaz and Rick.
I can't believe Fawaz is ahead of me, man. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so. And the thing is, and Mike has criticized Putin on the rundown. So, and then you look at Dr. Taylor Marshall. I know absolutely nowhere where Marshall has supported Putin. It's and I can't speak for other people on this list. Patrick Coffin.
He even says no proof.
He's not a trad.
I love it. I need to step the game up. I gotta beat Ann.
Right?
Yeah, no kidding. Get to number 1. So I just wrote, I have the faintest idea who this group is, and they're obviously not listening. So
that's right.
Yeah, I don't.
I can't believe I'm not in the top 10. This is ridiculous.
And I've probably been more contrarian about all this than any of you, and yet I'm not anywhere on that list. I've been the most contrarian.
I'm not on that list.
I
think you're right after me.
Oh, okay. I was calling Ryan.
We're all everybody. Oh, actually,
that's fantastic.
Sorry, you're not.
Right?
My bad. John, you should be though. You're honorary. You're the first one in since we're talking about March Madness. You're the first one out, first one in. Maybe next week when the power rankings get
I'm Duke right now.
The pro Putin power rankings come out. Maybe I can crack the top 10, but we'll see. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Fawaz, we showed those pictures after you went. Do you want to jump in and talk about the picture about in the Ukraine flag being placed down, and then the picture, the propaganda picture, since you're in entertainment and things like that?
This is a great cigar, by the way. I'm just enjoying this.
Amen.
That's the first time I've seen this list. I don't even know what this list means. Again, it goes to show you this excess and defect side. You just thrown into a list when they don't even know what your thoughts and intentions are. But it is what it is. No, I saw what you put up. Yeah, it's blasphemous. It's blasphemous. And a lot of times what they'll do, and both sides do this, is they'll use faith to push an agenda, and the faith will just be a front to get what they want. So like somebody said over here, that because the faith is so universal, everybody is part of it. So I am not pro-Ukraine, nor am I pro-Russia. I am pro-Iraq. Let's go.
All right, finally, Steve, jump on in here. I've said I've gone to you like 4 times, and then I went to other people. It's your turn, bud. Jump on in. Number 2 in the power rankings, baby.
I know. I gotta go. Here we go. All right, just to piggyback off what Ryan had on his links just a moment ago. This came out yesterday in Ukraine, and I had Google Translate for this. I know, and I don't speak Ukrainian or whatever this came from. In Ukraine, an error of social credit with WWIII application. Now, what happened is they basically went all great reset on there. The social credit score just started with it. Digital passport, digital wallet, all of that is going on this DII app, the digital identity app of Ukraine. Here's a photo of it. Again, they can just download it, bada bing. They're the first. It was tweeted out by Sheik the Truth yesterday. The first country to do it is Ukraine. Congratulations. They are all in on the Great Reset. Now, it's kind of funny because Schwab has kicked Russia out of Davos, of the whole WEF format. They kicked them out for a little bit. They silenced everything. So I don't understand that one because they're very good friends. They're just jumping in on the Ukraine thing. But Russia and China are meeting right now to discuss basically becoming the superpower, which I think it's page 70 something in COVID-19, the Great Reset, talks about when China is the world leader and the U.S. isn't the powerhouse anymore. It's now equal. Everyone's sitting at the table, basically. Now, if you haven't seen this, you're not going to see this on regular news. This is Patrick Lancaster's YouTube channel. People getting killed on a bus. There's bodies out here from a bomb. There was one that really got me where I don't want to go through all of it, but you can check it out on Patrick's YouTube channel, where it mentions or it shows these two elderly people dead in the car and the phone's ringing. He goes, it looks like there's people calling to check on their grandparents, and obviously they're not picking up. So you're not, and they explain who did this, and everyone to a T says the Ukrainians are doing this. The Ukrainians are bombing it. The Ukrainians are shooting at this. Again, if you don't like it, check his channel out. He's literally live on the ground, putting out videos every day, doing amazing work. Now, where I have a link here, a video of. Sorry, the computer is taking some time. Of our boys, as in the media.
Ryan, what's on your radar? The Ukrainian President Zelensky has made twin requests of his Western allies as his country fends off an invasion by Russian forces. First, he has consistently implored for more military aid, including enforcement of a no-fly zone, as well as additional sanctions on Russia and those around President Putin. Second, he has pushed the West to be more involved in negotiations toward an end to the war. The first demand sits at the center of the debate over the war in the U.S. and in Europe as the allies grapple with how and which weapons to support the Ukrainian defensive efforts. The second demand has met a far more muted response. But on Saturday, an unnamed State Department spokesperson told Reuters that the U.S. was prepared to help. Quote, "If there are diplomatic steps that we can take that the Ukrainian government believes would be helpful, we're prepared to take them," the spokesperson said. "We are working to put the Ukrainians in the strongest possible negotiating position, including by increasing pressure on Russia, by imposing severe costs, and by providing security assistance to help Ukrainians defend themselves," unquote.
Which is funny because Brandon is sending them shotguns, which you remember the whole video about grab a shotgun that he did. He's sending a bunch of shotguns to the Ukraine.
So yeah.
Why? This is the media wanting war.
And it's drum beating for war. This will make the hairs on your neck stand up.
Zelensky and other Ukrainian officials have made so clear that what they believe they need the most is more warplanes and fighter jets. So why is the U.S. assessing something different? Why does the U.S. believe they know better what Ukraine needs than what Ukrainian officials are saying they need the most?
It sounds like, we're pretty dug in on our position when it comes to the no-fly zone, when it comes to the MiGs, despite this growing bipartisan call in Congress to shift a little bit. So, to put it bluntly, is Zelensky wasting his time tomorrow asking for these things?
President Zelensky is going to be speaking to Congress tomorrow. He's been pushing for fighter jets, a no-fly zone. You have to hear some of those same requests tomorrow as well. Has the administration shifted on that at all?
Estonia, though, calling for a no-fly zone. They're a NATO member. They share a border with Russia. How do we view their calls for a no-fly zone?
And on President Zelensky's address tomorrow, of course, he is expected to ask for more assistance, as my colleague noted. A lot of the U.S. positions on that haven't changed, as you just said, when it comes to the no-fly zone. But on the aircraft specifically, the Pentagon said last week that Secretary Austin said they do not support the transfer of additional fighter aircraft at this time. Is that still the United States' position?
Would a strike in Poland on supplies or anything really automatically be met with a military forceful response? Simply a conversation amongst allies about how to respond.
There are reports that a Russian drone made its way into Polish airspace before going back to Ukraine and being shot down. Does a drone into Poland count?
Former Ambassador to Ukraine, Maria Ivanovich, has been quite outspoken recently, and she said we need to mitigate risk, but it's also true that not taking greater action comes with a risk as well, because Putin is a bully and he only understands strength. Is the president showing enough strength?
Now, these muzzled people keep going. Let's bring in Graham.
But I think he's here in spirit at this moment. If Senator McCain were here, it'd be 27 MiGs they'd want to transfer because he'd probably be in one headed toward Ukraine. The bottom line is 20 days into this fight, we're all amazed at how bad the Russians are doing and how well the Ukrainians are doing. And I think what Senator Whitehouse is trying to remind us all of.
Remember, Graham was part of the insurrection.
Do
you still stand by your
Yeah, I hope he'll be taken out one way or the other. I don't care how they take him out. I don't care if we send him to The Hague and try him. I just want him to go. Yes, I'm on record. Please understand, Senator Lindsey Graham, and if John McCain were here, he'd be saying the same thing, I think. It's time for him to go. He's a war criminal. I wish somebody had taken Hitler out in the 30s. So, yes, that Vladimir Putin.
The war criminal is calling somebody else a war criminal.
Right.
Now, what we were bringing up about how people were treating each other, Kim brought this up yesterday.
What's on your radar, Kim?
Well, Russian tennis player Daniil Medvedev, who also happens to be the reigning #1 men's tennis player in the world, is being told he cannot compete at Wimbledon unless he denounces Vladimir Putin. As it is, Russian and Belarusian tennis players are not seeing their country's flag next to their names during matches, nor hearing their country's anthems. They're competing as neutrals. Their tennis federations have been suspended, and they've been banned from team international competition. But the UK government says this isn't enough. They are demanding Russian players give public assurances that they are not supporters of the Putin government, or else. Nigel Huddleston, the United Kingdom sports minister, made this point during a parliament meeting Tuesday, stating over and over and over that he absolutely doesn't want to see the Russian flag anywhere at Wimbledon. Okay, well, this problem has already been solved. Russian and Belarusian players didn't have their flags seen anywhere at the recent California-based Indian Wells tournament, but his indignation continued anyway until he said, I think we need to have some assurance that they're not supporters of Vladimir Putin, and we are considering what requirements we may need to get assurances along those lines. Well, I have an idea. How about we bind them up and throw them in a lake to see if they sink or float? Over the past few weeks, we've seen scores of Russian anti-war protesters being thrown in jail over their opposition to the invasion of Ukraine. This isn't new. The West has asserted for years that Putin is a brutal dictator who silences his opposition. So it stands to reason the British government would understand there is a real risk to speaking up. Yet they demand it anyway. They want Daniil Medvedev and other Russian athletes to, according to their own claims, risk their lives and possibly their loved ones' lives in order to play at Wimbledon. These are athletes who have no control or power over what's happening in Ukraine. It makes no sense, and it's actually dangerous. Is this where we're headed as a society? Yep. It was one thing to virtue signal on social media to elevate one's social status, but it's an entirely other thing to force people into proving their virtue or they can't participate in their careers. We're still experiencing this with vaccine mandates. You still can't enter the United States unvaccinated, even though it's well known that vaccines do not stop the spread of COVID. We've known this for a long time, yet people, even those with natural immunity, were punished for not going along with the morality of those in power. Another tennis player, Novak Djokovic, is still being banned from playing in many tournaments because he refuses to get a vaccine that doesn't even slow the spread of Omicron. He didn't obey the morality overlords, and because of it, he's being punished. And now it's Medvedev who is being told he must make a public statement denouncing Putin or risk his career. He's already stated he supports peace. Here it is.
My message is always the same. You know, I want peace in all the world, all the countries. Actually, don't know how many there are in the world, but every country, you know, that's what I think every tennis player is going to say the same. It's always, you know, tough to talk on this subject for me because I just, you know, I want to play tennis. We play in different countries. I want to promote my sport. I want to promote what I'm doing in my country for sure also. And right now the situation is that that's the only way how I can play. So that's what I'm going to do. And same, I'm going to try to fight on the court, try to win the tournaments and try to beat other guys.
So this statement isn't enough. The world wants more. Babylon Bee, a parody website, made this posting that feels more like a future forecast than a joke. Medvedev has worked really, really hard to be the world's #1 after spending
I mean, it's literally exactly what we were going for the last 2 years. It's just being renamed. Take out the Rona, insert Russia now. Ryan brought up about the payment plans. Google Pay, Apple Pay, MasterCard, Visa, et al. Stopped letting people in Russia use it. Yep. Putin is able to pay for things. It's the common Joe that it's going to have to suffer. The people are not going to be able to get fed. They can't buy things. They're literally everything's stopping for them. And then you got everyone thinking that the Putin tax with gas. No, that's called inflation. After they printed up all this money from QE back almost a decade ago up until now, and pretty much before then, because we were spending the you-know-what out of things. Been printing money out of the air. They've been giving you money for the last 2 years, basically a UBI test run under the guise of the Rona when they made you stop working, which is part of the plan. That raises inflation rates. And now, because even CNN came out with a thing, how come the gas is going up, but we don't use much of Russian oil? Indeed. How's that happen? Anybody with 2 working brain cells going, wait a minute, we don't get that much Russian oil. Why is gas going? Why is every 5 minutes the gas going up? That never happens. It's all part of speculation. But yeah, everyone's going, Putin, bad guy. And you got President Brandon out here.
I may be Irish, but I'm not stupid. I married Dominic.
Get a shot, guy.
Yeah. Well, that in that regard, you're looking at that Brandon, and I'm just happy he was able to stand up today. That's great. So he's going to get Jameson flavored ice cream to celebrate St. Patrick's Day for him.
Oh, Patrick. Come on, Patrick.
Yeah. By the way, the Irish Prime Minister who's in Washington, he's actually under house quarantine today. Today of all days, he's under quarantine because he got COVID. So that guy's he's like,
oh boy,
everything he touches, touch the crap. It's terrible. It's awful. So
this whole thing with the sports, I mean, sports has always been used politically one way or another. I mean, people would line up with teams that it became, you look back to Constantinople and the energy with which people supported greens versus purple or whatever. And so, but this is like a new level, in my opinion. I mean, we've seen the identity politics, so that would say the NFL, LeBron, all these kind of people over the years. And so, I mean, I checked out of sports 20 years ago, so it's kind of surprising it took that long for people to say, "Oh man, this is like bread and circuses." But now it's like that new level. You have to show your virtue. You have to show that you're part of the party system. And it is, and again, I've made this comment before. Orwellian is an overused adjective, but it's almost right every time it's being used. So if you haven't read it, I do recommend it. Here is one quote that I'll read very quickly. I'll skip the other part I was going to read. The party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. His heart sank as he thought of the enormous power arrayed against him, the ease with which any party intellectual would overthrow him in debate, the subtle arguments which he would not be able to understand, much less answer. And yet he was in the right. They were wrong, and he was right. The obvious, the silly, and the true had to go to be defended. Truisms are true. Hold on to that. The solid world exists, its laws do not change. Stones are hard, water is wet. Objects unsupported fall toward the Earth's center. With the feeling that he was speaking to O'Brien, that's the villain that they've given to everyone for the 5 minutes of hate, and also that he was setting forth an important axiom. He wrote, "Freedom is the freedom to say that 2 + 2 make 4. If that is granted, all else follows." And that's the freedom, of course, that they're getting rid of. And so, and he wonders at different points, like, well, if one guy, thinks this, is he just a lunatic, or is it true? What if? And the truly terrifying thing is, what if they're right? How do I know? And that certain basis of knowledge, and that's what they're aiming at, where people literally will not know common sense, and they'll be unable to think it. In the news speak that'll come from the media, which have set themselves up as the media as the Ministry of Truth, basically, from Orwell. They're going to decide what is and isn't true as the party dictates, and that's the world we're going to. And I think the sports business is just another manifestation of it. So get yourself an old copy just in case they're changing anything in the new copies. It is still under copyright, so you know you can't reprint the old ones, but get a hold of them used.
Yeah, they're making a woke version of it. They're making it.
Are they?
I want that version because it looks like the old "I'm just a Bill, I'm only a Bill" cartoon. That kind of digs deep into my
heart. Just the Disney version.
That's right. That's right. Whatever, Disney, yay. John, you have an article from the American Conservative you want to talk about?
Yeah, from I'd say a friend as well, Joseph Pierce there, who's South Carolinian. But it's so brilliant because it's later, about maybe half to two-thirds of the way down the article, you find where Solzhenitsyn really calls out the weakness that he says is common both in Ukraine and in Russia. And granted, in his day, but things have not changed; they've actually gotten worse. And that is the subsidiarity is just lacking. Okay, so that's one thing that's residual from communism that was never fixed, he said. And that the proper response to it wasn't really to be found in the West either. We didn't have a strong sense of subsidiarity in most of the Western, so-called Western nations. So I think that Joseph Pierce is getting at the heart of why both Ukraine and Russia are in such a mess right now. Is they never freed themselves from the bonds of communism because they didn't opt for subsidiarity, and things just went from bad to worse in some ways there. And so although Solzhenitsyn, Joseph Pierce says, was impressed and pleased with where the general populace was headed in their understanding of the errors of communism, it's a whole nother beast when you're talking about the government that's running both Russia and now Ukraine. So it's really worth a read. Joseph Pierce always has some pretty helpful stuff to offer to a current situation like this, and reaching back to luminaries like Solzhenitsyn. He does a good job there, I think.
Yeah, Joseph Pierce is always a good one to read, especially the insight he brings. So that's an awesome article, and it brings up some really good points in that regard. And it just keeps going back to a complex issue that, in a Twitter-led society and a social media-led society where everything's got to be digestible sound bites or within 140 characters, that nobody can dare speak outside of Putin bad, Ukraine good without being put on a hate list, which, by the way, thank you very much again. And it's one of these things that we have to just kind of fight through and continue to educate ourselves. And also, I think all of us here, I don't have to worry about that. Don't watch any of this stuff. Like, I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch any of these other things. I get my stuff, ironically enough, from Twitter because attention span. So I don't fall for the actual propaganda, because you can't, even if you are most strict against the whole war, if you watch enough of this stuff, it's going to get you. So we have to read people like Joseph Pierce and continue to stay as close to the truth as possible. So that's the latest. Now, we spent enough time on that. We got a couple minutes left. Let's just I'm going to ask this quick question because Fawaz wanted to he brought up a pretty good point about the survey that was just done, and it says, the headline is, most Democrats say they'd flee not fight a Ukrainian-style invasion. And
Hooray.
My question is, real quick, to every single one of you, starting with Flaz, then John, then Steve, then Ryan, you staying and fighting, or you running to Canada? Flaz.
Oh yeah. Just a brief point about this. We're talking about Democrats. I'm interested to figure out what age level they asked this question when they took this poll, because if you look at here's how I see it, just in general. When you love an individual, like I do with my family, there are certain ways in which I'm going to protect that love by what I call preventative spiritual, doing prayers and praying over my children and things like that, and blessing them to keep them foreign enemies away. But also in the physical matter, if I have to take up arms or fist fight, in case just whoever wants to come and attack my family, because you prove love of what you're willing to defend and how much it costs you in order for you to defend the external person. And with the throwaway culture, most Democrats, I'm just going to say it, don't like this country to begin with. They think that this country is irredeemable. It needs to be changed from the top to bottom. It needs to go. Entire structure needs to go. So if the throwaway culture does not find value in something, they're just going to throw it and move on to the next. They actually don't mind, a communist country to take over so they can fulfill their communist dreams of becoming the new communist regime. So it's sad. And last I checked, we have the cardinal virtue of justice, and under that is the virtue of piety, and under that is the virtue of patriotism, which is a virtue. So, to be a patriot is you must first and foremost seek the good of the country by aligning the values of the country to the divine and natural law and the citizens, in order to cultivate as much virtue as possible. But also, if a foreign enemy is to attack that country, then you should be able to pick up and fight for it. And I would fight for this country. I'm a citizen. I wasn't born here, but I'm assimilated. I love this country. It's given me so much, and so yeah, that's my 2 cents when it comes to that.
Jonathan.
Yes, I would fight for this country. My only problem is, since I was my family comes from Alabama, some of them from Georgia. I was born and raised in South Carolina. I love North Carolina too, because half my family lives there. And now I live in Florida. I'd be just trekking around from Florida all the way around, probably going up into Tennessee and Kentucky, because I love those states as well. And just fighting for the entire, I consider this my patria, as the Southeast of America. I feel at home anywhere in the Southeast. I'd say from as far west, maybe Louisiana, even Mississippi, all the way up to most parts of Virginia. And for that patria, I would fight to the death. Yes, because I want my children to be able to, God willing, live and grow up here.
Steve.
I'll do what Thug Nasty talked about. I'm not going over there for corrupt government, but if somebody crosses in the border, I'll be on the front line with the 1st Redneck Battalion.
Ryan.
Yeah, it's part of the virtue of patriotism is, the love of the land and love of your countrymen. So for me, I consider the first and foremost the state where I reside, namely Idaho. But at the same time, the United States as a whole, although I think the jury's still out in California, but otherwise, the United States as a whole, is the land within which that resides. And so I would not fight for a politician's war. If they're going to start drafting people to go to the Ukraine, I'm too old for the draft now, but they're going to start drafting people to go to Ukraine. I don't know that I go to the skip to Canada route, but maybe the Fort Leavenworth route. I'm not fighting, in some stupid politician's war. What if they're coming over here? Now that's different, because the patria, that has that hold on my allegiance and my loyalty, I will fight. I will take up arms, and whether that's, whatever form that is, first and foremost is their family, but at the same time, yeah, I would definitely fight to repel a foreign invasion if it came to that, because that really is the virtue of patriotism. That's really what it's all about. So it's rather funny that Democrats in a survey that are, they'll try to tell you got to support Biden or you're not patriotic, you got to support this, and how dare you say bad things about the president, it's not patriotic. But the first and most important patriotic duty of a citizen is to flee at the first sign of trouble. That's a hireling, that's a communist, basically. That's what they do. It's all about whatever works best for them, really. So I say good riddance. Get the hell out and stay out, by the way, so that we manage to keep going. You ain't welcome. But that's just my thought.
So I'll take the I don't know, controversial contrarian approach. No, I'm not going anywhere to fight. My loyalty is, and I'm following something that Mike Church, the host of the Mike Church Show on the Crusade channel, has said. You need to form your home, your physical home, as a kingdom. And you need to be the king of that kingdom. Name it, establish it under, like mine here in Texas, and my little homestead is the kingdom of St. Josephsburg. And that's and I will defend my kingdom as the patriarch of this home, and that's what I will do. Would I also help defend other kingdoms in other places? Yes, because that's a benefit for me. If I can stop them farther out and not come to my home, yes, absolutely, I would be willing to. But for me, it starts defending my kingdom, then my town, then county, then state, if that's the way it goes, because then you want to make sure that you are not overextending yourself for somebody else. Outside of my state, I don't know what the thought is, but I won't be. There's plenty of people in California. They can defend California. And there's plenty of people in Nevada. They can defend Nevada. That's, if you want to, as Flaz said, as John said, if you want to take advantage of this country, this union of states, and you want all the things, well, then when the time comes, you need to stay there and you need to plant your feet and you need to defend it. Like I am willing to do for my kingdom, my city, town, state. That's my priority in that regard. So that is controversial because it's not the rah, grab the guns and let's just go kill all whoever is there. Yeah, you guys can handle that. And
well, if it happens, we're just going to get nuked. There's not going to be any troops on the ground here. It's going to be, hey, you got 4 minutes till you're incinerated.
Well, luckily, then the kingdom of St. Josephsburg does have redundancies for such things.
Maybe that's the thing. Go bring back Fatima, the Jesuit 8. Better be on your knees.
Yes. Right, exactly. In that regard, that's a good point. Looks like we are getting close to the end of the program, so we've got the Catholic tip of the week and then our cry room and saint of the week. So let's go Catholic tip of the week, starting with Flaz. You have a virtue for us.
Yeah, it's a short one. It's going to be the virtue of diligence, just to so that you can continue doing your work in the state of your life, especially during Lent. I know we're people get pumped up. Lent's like Ash Wednesday is like the time where everybody it's just like January for the gym for the gym members. Everybody signs up, everybody's gung ho, but then middle February comes along, they just want to give up. But we're getting to a point where it's stay diligent, especially in the spiritual life. Continues doing your almsgiving, continue doing your penance, your fasting and your abstinence, and then continue in your prayers. So just be diligent in your home. Don't waste any time. St. Alphonsus didn't waste any time. None of the saints wasted time. Idleness is the tool of the devil. So continue being diligent in your home and your work. And so, yeah, diligence is my virtue.
Excellent. Jonathan, your Catholic tip of the week.
Yeah. Find out the distinction between studiosity and curiosity in St. Thomas Aquinas and do something about it. That is, open it, and it's more or less what Fawaz was suggesting there. It's connected with diligence, but try to figure out truths about things. Try to learn more deeply certain subjects.
Please, Father, can't have any more of these.
Yeah, you don't want to have like
more of these anti-English.
So you gotta with that. Then I think you can make some great progress by learning something and learning it deeply and well, instead of in curiosity, just having a smattering of everything here, there. I mean, it's somewhat of a necessity in the modern world to maybe know what's going on around you, but try to put a limit to how much that fire hose can spray at you, because the vice of curiosity can really do damage.
Who's Steve?
I'll say make sure you're reading Garanger. I've had so many people writing me saying thank you for talking about that or putting it on the YouTube channel. If you haven't read today's version or today's write-up, he talks about the rich man and Lazarus. And he brings up how the rich man wasn't having any public scandal or wasn't out there sitting out the wazoo, but he was just wrapped up in worldly, earthly things and did not consider his last end, did not consider heaven, did not consider eternity. He didn't even hate on the poor beggar out on the street. Didn't tell him to give a good away. Let him hang out. But he didn't do anything to help him out, really, and he was just focused on the world, whereas Lazarus was focused on eternal things and how a rich man ended up going to hell. And he goes, again, that says he didn't do any public scandal or anything. So, like, what did he do? He was just focused on worldly things. So, yeah, make sure you make pray, hope, don't worry, because we're made for a heaven, not making the kingdom of Christ in your backyard, really.
Ryan, Catholic tip of the week.
Hilarity. Take time to cultivate and develop a sense of humor. Laugh, right? Take joy in basic things. And given it St. Patrick's Day, I have a joke. Ready? All right. So there's an old Irish priest, and his dad was killed by the English, and so every anniversary of his death, and at times sundry, like every Sunday, he gets up to the pulpit and starts preaching against the English and how the English are the spawn of Satan and they're the worst and they're evil and bad and so many things. And so the bishop hauls him in. Hey, Father, you can't be having any more of these anti-English sermons. It's bad for relations. Hey, Bishop, whatever you say, the priest replied. Then he goes back and does the same thing again. So after a while, the bishop calls him in, reads him the riot act again. And he goes back and does the same thing again for more and more Sundays. So finally, the bishop's had enough. He calls him back in. Father, if you do it again, you'll be sacked. You hear me? Aye, Bishop, whatever you say. So he gets up in the pulpit, and it's the anniversary of his death. So he's got a fiery anti-English sermon, just ready to go. And when he gets up there, and he looks, and then, yes, saints alive, the bishop's in the front pew. Just looking on. So he scrambles through his notes, pretends to be busy until he can come up with a plan. And he's like, okay. So he gets up and he starts preaching. And he says, aye, my friends, now in the night our Lord was betrayed. Then he said, one of you will betray me. And Peter comes to him and he says, aye, Lord, will it be I? And Jesus says, no, Peter, it won't be you. And then John comes up and says, well, Lord, will it be I? And Jesus says, no, John, it won't be you. And then at last, Judas comes up, and the devil, and that devil said, excuse me, Lord, will it be I? That's it.
His daughter. I may be Irish, but I'm not stupid. I married.
I already took out the two Irish lads. Come on now, Patrick. Wait one tiddlywink, Patrick.
That's right. All right, ladies and gentlemen. I guess mine we continue to pray, hope, don't worry, and continue.
Wait, cry room.
What?
The cry room.
We're gonna get to it. Yeah, no, I'm just giving my Catholic tip of the week.
Sorry about that. I thought you were concluding. Never mind.
It's all right, lad. You're fine.
Hey, carry on, laddie.
It's all right. It's all right. Don't worry. But yeah, pray, hope, don't worry. Continue to stay strong. If you miss a day, if you, because it's right about now, things that we're trying to give up or do a reading or things like that. If you skip a day, if you stumble, it's not right now. It's not the end of the world. So just get back on the horse and continue to do so. All right, cry room time. We're going to do saint and cry room. You're going to give me both at the same time. Fwaz, give me your saint of the week, and then who do you got in the cry room?
My saint of the week is either Bishop Athanasius Schneider or Bishop Strickland for seeing the the need for the bishops to also be in union with the Pope, with the consecration, and asking other bishops to join in, and recognizing that we do need help from heaven, and taking a step in that. So kudos to those great bishops, and Bishop Ignatius Schneider, and also Bishop Strickland, Bishop of Talbot, Texas. Was it Cry Room? I don't know if anybody had this. I'm sorry if I took yours, but I got to go with Dave Rubin. Sorry, brother. It's just ridiculous. There's no difference between Dave Rubin and Pete Buttigieg and what they're doing. The only difference is one spews one ideology, the other one does the other, and we have to support. And we all of a sudden have to come around and support the one who's a conservative. But what are you conserving? So yeah, that Rubin is going to be my Cry Room dude.
All right, I got to back up. I'm okay. I'm good. I'm okay. It's all about me, so I'm okay now. So you can have that. John, who do you got for your saint and then your Cry Room?
Well, because I'm always contrarian with you guys. I'm going to make my saint actually a canonized one. So I'm going to say it is the holiest Italian who has ever lived, and that is Saint Patrick.
Yeah, right? I love doing
that. The holiest Roman. I should be more specific, because some people say he's Italian, but Roman, holiest Roman that ever lived. But seriously, because Saint Patrick, the reason he went somewhere else was to do battle for the faith, and kind of, I guess you'd say, summing up what we pretty much all said, just in our own manner, was we're going to be willing to fight for the ones we love and hold dear, because that's part of our state in life, most of us here as married men and all. But if we go off somewhere, it's going to be solely for the sake of Christ, and to spread what is his kingdom, nothing more, not to spread our any sort of nationalism or spread democracy, God forbid. So no, that my saint is Saint Patrick, and if anything calls you out of the country to spread the faith, okay, but not to spread any sort of that nonsense. In the Cry Room, a friend of mine sent me a picture on the road to Lviv or Lvov, depending if you're Polish or Ukrainian. There was on the Ukrainian side, obviously, there was a picture that said, glory to ours, slava nashi, to our folks, but smert, death, to basically the foreign invaders there, or to the enemy, as it was put there. And so whoever is putting things out like that, whoever's inciting Ukrainians to go after the other, right, the so-called enemy there, who has lived in that country, or those people are in my Cry Room, because that's not going to bring any sort of lasting peace. That's not the peace of Christ, not the peace that our Blessed Mother has in mind when she promises an era of peace. So I'm praying that our Holy Father will follow through with his good proposal, and that we will actually see an era of peace where things like that, death, which is actually in the famous, liturgical acclamation at Easter, dying, he destroyed our death. Smerti smert poprav. We got to get rid of stuff like that. Death with such nationalistic propaganda. No, we want to see our enemies be brought to life in Christ, not death.
Absolutely, Steve. Saint and Cry Room. Don't take mine.
I'll do Patrick Lancaster as the saint, because he's doing some hardcore stuff out in Ukraine, putting those videos out and going where the bombs are going off. People are going, man, that guy's out of breath, or he's a little over the top. Well, he's literally right where the bombs are going off, so he'd probably be acting the same way. My Cry Room people, I would say the wokeism people, and that's a big one. I mean, the flag posters and all that. But John Harbaugh ended up, he's the football coach at the University of Michigan, and hired a new quarterback coach. She used to play for Georgetown University. And I'm going, that'd be like sending Ryan to quarterback, be the quarterback coach for the 49ers or something.
Oh, yeah, she's 23 years old. She just graduated.
You're telling me there's nobody else on the planet that played football that actually could be in, the QB coach? So she's the first female graduate assistant at University of Michigan, pretty much because she's a woman.
Yep. All right. Ryan, Saint and Sinner. I'm sorry, Saint and Cry Room.
Well, Jonathan took mine, so I'm going to have to go to St. Joseph, whose feast day is on Saturday. St. Joseph, who was not a mere laborer, he was a sole proprietor. He owned his own business, his work, his labor. He labored hard, but also was obedient. And he's in probably the most unenviable situation for any man, unless you have absolute supreme virtue, is that your wife, it was immaculately conceived and sinless, and your foster child that you've been given care of is the Son of God. And so, what are you, perfect? Actually, yeah. Since you asked, yes. and yet, because God had endowed him with so many virtues, that he was able to lead and be the foster father of the Son of God. And
Man,
as
you don't have to have a book about that, do you?
I wasn't going to grip, but since you gave me the opening,
that's okay. I'm the host. I get to do that stuff. Don't you have a book?
Anyway, so we just published this. I'm in the 10th, about 10 days ago. So the month of St. Joseph, and it is a wonderful book which I do recommend, which has a meditation for every day of the month of March, has a prayer and an example drawn from the life of various saints. I can't get this right, stupid webcam. Anyway, so we have it here. The hardcover just went in the back order, but I do have paperback, and the hardcover should be back in early next week. So anyway, so that's my saint of the week, is St. Joseph. It's his month, and he's the patron of the Universal Church, and so we absolutely need him. So then the next one, so the Cry Room. I'm going to share my screen for this. I am putting Disney in the Cry Room this week. Why? Why Disney? Well, one, Disney ruins everything they touch. And so Star Wars, obviously, with the disaster of the sequel trilogy, as if the prequels weren't bad enough. They're actually starting to look good compared to the sequel trilogy. But then we have this. So they created a special Star Wars hotel, $5,000 a night or something like that.
That's a 2-night stay.
Or a 2-night stay, yes. So it gets $2,500 a night to stay, and they're struggling. Nobody wants to go because it's the lame, stupid, boring thing, and they've taken the life and killed Star Wars, just as they've also done to Marvel, and they've done to virtually everything else that they get their hands on. And meanwhile, while they're destroying beloved franchises and inserting woke everything into their film, we have this. 4 Disney employees arrested for human trafficking, deputies say. And it's deeper than that, too. So that would be
it's up to 100 now.
Yeah. It's tons of Disney employees, arrested for this sort of thing. Meanwhile, putting woke messaging into all our films. So I put Disney in the Cry Room for this week. Can you just make something decent that people want to see and stop playing? Never mind. There's not even worth it because they're a big evil company bent on destroying art and culture. So,
right. All right. For me, I will put. Unfortunately, mine is because Flaz took my my non-sports ones. So my saint of the week is going to be Ed Cooley, who is the head coach of the Providence College Friars, who actually won their NCAA tournament game just now, earlier today against, I think, I don't know, some team called the Jackrabbits. I don't know. They were really good. Providence does not win NCAA tournament games. So thank you to Ed Cooley, Big East champ for Providence College. And then won an actual game. They won't win many. They'll get blown out by Kansas probably, I think, either in this game or the next game. But
no
still,
pun intended on blown out.
What?
No pun intended.
No, none at all. But he's my saint of the week. My sinner, person I put in the Cry Room is Rex Chapman, the left-wing nut job on Twitter, who got a job with Turner Broadcasting for the NCAA tournament, and everybody's like, "Wow, you're just terrible. You're just a terrible, terrible human being." And he is kind of a terrible human being, so he deserves to be in the Cry Room this week because he's just a lunatic.
I love that guy when he was playing at Kentucky.
Yeah,
he was one of the guys I used to watch.
He's nuts. He is Trump derangement syndrome 110%. And yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of him at all. He peddles lies, stole $14,000 worth of stuff at an Apple store. So yeah, whatever. But yeah, that is it for us here on News from the Pew. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, subscribe so more people can check out this awesome program. For Steve, Ryan, Jonathan, Fawaz, I am your humble host, Rick Barrett. Check me out at thearmcatholic.com. We will see you next week. And now, always and forever, Viva Cristo Rey.
His daughter. I may be Irish, but I'm not